As far as I was concerned, Art the Clown was the master of the kill that makes me feel uncomfortable. You got the mashed potatoes, the upside down hacksaw. But after seeing what Johnny did to that poor woman doing yoga, it's hard not to recognize game. Intro! In a Violent Nature was a movie that I'd heard about, and once I finally got the hookup on a Shudder account, I decided why not get around to watching it. The movie was released as a Shudder original in 2024, and it was written and directed by Chris Nash. After digging through his past movies, this was definitely the one that got his name out there. And clocking in at 94 minutes, this is a perfect lazy Sunday afternoon sort of movie. This movie is by no means perfect, but as a modern slasher, this was a solid entry. There were a few times where I was watching this movie and I was borderline bored, only to be rewarded with some of the most gruesome stuff I've seen in a long time. But before I dive into the good, the bad, the dead, I'll give you a quick synopsis of the movie. Now, I keep calling them teens, they're probably in their 20s, but anyone younger than me is a teenager, so some teens go vacationing in a cabin in the woods. One of them, while they're out hiking, Troy, finds a locket sitting on a pipe and decides, nice locket, I'm going to take this. Now, the pipe starts moving below the ground, and it turns out that Troy has woken up a local legend, who now happens to be essentially a golem with a child's brain. And boy, does he want that locket back. He then starts erasing the teens from existence in order to get the locket back. It's a slasher. I don't know what else you want me to say, so now it's time for the good, the bad, the dead. One thing all slashers need, obviously, is memorable kills, and this movie absolutely provided that. I know I keep mentioning the yoga scene, but there's another character, Colt, who receives probably the most angry treatment in the movie. Aurora, the yoga girl's death, is definitely the most memorable in the movie, but Colt's really just kind of sticks with you. Just the sound times a million. Another thing I really enjoyed was you got to see the monster's face. They hid it through most of the movie, and I love a good mask as much as the next person, but I also love seeing what a makeup artist is able to do with a tangible person's face. And they did a solid job in this movie. Johnny's face was scary, and giving him like a child's brain was also a nice touch. As the owner of a child, I know how unpredictable they can be, and giving them super strength and the inability to die just seems incredibly irresponsible, but great for this movie. And that's what the teens are up against. And I know I mentioned it before, and not to sound like a totally phone-addicted brain rot dumbass, but this movie coming in at just a little bit over 90 minutes was absolutely perfect. That's the perfect length for a movie. And the movie did a fairly good job of filling up that time, but there were also some things that just didn't quite sit right with me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have a bunch of bad things to say about this movie, but there's definitely some stuff that I want to mention. First being something I'm going to harp on in the next kills section is that the first victim, Chuck, was running away from Johnny with less urgency than if he had to take a shit really bad. Just sort of fumbling in knee-high grass with like a snail's pace, just going, stay away, no, leave me alone, ah! Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm chilling at my house and then all of a sudden a giant man-child covered in dirt and blood breaks into my house, I'm running so fast my ankles actually explode. I'm running until my heart blows up inside my chest. And all that lazy running just to get caught in a bear trap anyway? Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this sort of piggybacks off of the lazy running. But the scenes where Johnny is going from place to place, like the actual travel scenes, are so f***ing long. I understand you're trying to build tension, but when there's nothing you're building to and it's just him walking through the woods, you can make those a little shorter. Again, I'm sure I'm coming off as a totally brain-rotted dumbass and just complaining about the length of stuff, but those scenes were way too long. And my last real bad isn't even really the movie's fault. It's just my fault for having such a shitty fried brain, in that the scene where Johnny sees two victims from across the water and he just walks into the water and then just appears underwater on the other side. That made me laugh so hard, not because of the actual shot, but because of the visual picture my head just made up of him just walking across the bottom of the pond. It just really got me going for some reason. And I guess even worse than that was the fact that you built all that tension for a kill with basically no payoff. Now it's time to talk about the reason we're here, the kills in the movie. Now I'm gonna have them going in order from beginning to end, and as I just mentioned, Chuck was the first victim. As I mentioned, he just sort of trounces through grass off into the woods, and then he gets caught in a bear trap and ends up getting cornered by Johnny. Now the actual kill takes place off screen, but when we do return to that area slightly later in the movie, Chuck's arm has been torn off and most of his face is missing. And now here's when the teens start dying. Now, two teens start ribbing our next victim in honestly one of the most annoying ways possible. Apparently earlier in the movie, Aaron, the guy who ends up biting it here, met some girls at a gas station, so Aaron's friends just start ribbing him by just saying, "Fill me up, Aaron, fill me up," and they say it about 40 times. Now, Aaron decides to be super rad and go smoke a bowl and listen to a cassette player for some reason. I'm pretty sure this movie takes place the year it happened. But as Aaron's leaning up against a tree, Johnny comes around from the backside of the tree and basically holds a saw against the corners of his mouth until his head just sort of splits in half. Next victim is Brody. Now, much like Chuck's, hers, you don't really see anything take place. She's left alone by Aurora to swim in the pond that I mentioned earlier. Johnny then walks across the bottom of the pond and just begins pulling her underwater. She does do the fun pop up and shout real quick, but it's definitely not enough for anyone to hear her. You see her get pulled down one last time, and then her body just sort of floats up, and then the camera cuts over, and Johnny's walking out of the water, heading up the trail to Aurora. And now, Aurora is likely the poster person for kills in this movie. This was unlike anything I'd seen. Okay, well, it's kind of like some stuff from Terrifier, but in terms of just this happening, I've never seen this. This was one of those rare ones that even made me kind of squirm a little bit. I don't really know how to put into words what happens to this woman, but I'm gonna try. Aurora's doing yoga and she turns and she's suddenly very surprised to see Johnny. As she tries to run away, she ends up meeting a cliff face. She stops and then Johnny proceeds to shove his hand through her back and out her stomach. He then sort of spins her around, hits her on top of the head with another hook. He then runs the chains down through the wound and just proceeds to pull her stomach down through her back. And the part where the neck pops, they do a shot over the top where you see Aurora's spine just sort of pop off. That's the part that got me. I don't feel like I'm doing this enough justice, so I'm just going to link in the description below a link to all of the deaths in this movie, just in a row, so you can see what I'm talking about. The next two deaths are so insanely tame compared to what happens before and after these. So I'm just going to put these two together because they take place within like 2 minutes of each other. So the teens have started to realize that their friends are going missing. I think they've found one of the dead ones by now. So Troy starts freaking out, and while he's looking into like a SUV or something, Johnny sneaks up on him. Actually ends up hitting him in the leg with a hatchet. Now Troy ends up getting away, and off camera, Evan actually shoots Johnny with a rifle. Assuming Johnny's dead, they just pick each other up and try to leave the area. But then Johnny wakes up and he throws the hatchet off screen, which hits Evan in the back of the head. Now, after that, Troy ends up falling on the ground because Evan was carrying him. He begins crawling on his back, and Johnny just picks up a big rock and holds it right over his head. And he just drops it and just crushes the whole thing. And it was a nice, fun overhead shot of the whole thing. My only gripe with this is the fact that Troy knows he's about to have his head crushed, and he just lays there with his arms at his side, just like, no, and then his head just gets smashed. Like, no effort to protect yourself at all? Wild work. The next victim's death is so absurdly brutal that they didn't even bother to give him a character name. He's just Park Ranger. And he gets it so badly. He tries to tell the surviving kids that Johnny was asleep for 10 years and that when Troy disturbed the locket, he woke him up. During his explanation, Johnny shows up and the ranger tries to intervene and actually shoots Johnny again. Now, the park ranger has dealt with Johnny before and he knows better, so he tells Colt to go inside the ranger station, grab some chains so they can wrap him up. Now, when it comes time to actually wrap him up, the ranger tells Colt, wrap his feet. Colt's just like, dude, I'm too scared. I'm not going to do that. So the ranger goes, okay, I will hand you this gun. You will hand me the chains on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And obviously on 3, Johnny comes back and grabs the gun. He pulls the ranger down to the ground, and this is when the suck really begins. Johnny just grabs the man essentially on his shoulder and, I don't know, probably like his hip, and just bends the man in half until you hear his spine clearly explode. Now the man is conscious, but a complete quadriplegic. Now Johnny could have just left him there to die, but instead, he drags him into a shed. Once you get into that shed, you see a hydraulic log splitter, which Johnny uses to then prop part of the man's arm up and just watch it get lopped off. And all the man can do is just sort of stare at it. And then Johnny just, after that, picks the man's emotionless, limp body up, lays his neck on the thing, and the log splitter does the rest of the work for you. That was a tough scene, but there was still room for one more pretty heavy dose of brutality. Colt is the last victim in this movie. Now, during the movie, Colt kind of gives off the impression that he's like the selfish loner type. The guy dragged to the woods reluctantly because something like this was gonna happen. But in a desperate act of confidence, I guess, at the end of the movie, he tries to draw Johnny away from this lone survivor, Chris. But before he's even able to finish his "we're right here" thing, Johnny just spins around and just buries the hatchet right in his face. And at first you're like, whoa, that was really abrupt and fun. But then he just keeps swinging over and over again. And it's not 8 times. It's not 15 times. It's genuinely like 70 times. And you hear it, just this wet, mushy slap sort of sound over and over and over. Like the sheer number is just absolutely nauseating. But while Colt is having his head absolutely pulverized, Chris, the owner of the locket now, smartly puts it on a gas can and runs off into the woods. Now Chris does get away after being helped by one of the most annoying people I've ever come across in a movie. A random woman picks her up on a dirt road, and all she does for 10 minutes is talk about her friend Bobby, how her friend Bobby was attacked by a bear out there, and some people have it worse than you, honey. Who also, mind you, Chris has been traumatized and is passing out, and this woman's like, I need you to stay awake and answer me when I talk to you. Like, ma'am, you. But the conversation sort of implies that Johnny's been attacking people before, because her bear story doesn't really make any sense at the end. In a Violent Nature is getting a sequel, which Shudder said starts production this month in September of 2025. If the second one is just this movie again, I'm fine. I'll bite. I'll watch. I don't need this movie to be more than what it was, which was just a gory, blood-soaked 90 minutes of, oh hell yeah. So my final rating for In a Violent Nature is 3 out of 5 girls having their heads pulled through their guts. There were a lot of fun, memorable moments in this movie, but all in all, it was fine. The long travel scenes, paired with some less than great characters and acting, made it tough to watch sometimes, but it's all around a great buddy movie. And when I say that, I mean, show this movie to your buddies. Don't collect your friends and be like, well, I have something to show you, because then you're going to a home. But like Motion City Soundtrack once said, the plot sucks, but these killings are gorgeous. Man, that really sums up this movie. But thank you very much, as always, for watching. Have you seen In a Violent Nature? Are you going to watch it now after my review? Did I spoil the entire thing for you? Let me know down below. Also, be sure to head over to my Patreon if you want some more exclusive content. Link is in the description down below. But again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, peace out!